In this Adobe Illustrator tutorial, you will learn how to create detailed isometric house. You will see full professional creative process from basics to advanced techniques. First, you will learn how to create base for isometric house using 3D effects. We'll see how to combine 3D effects to get complicated details, how to experiment with 3D, and then we'll learn how to bring 3D isometric scene to high professional level using clipping mask, opacity mask, gradients, blending modes, and blend tool. I will explain each step, so even if you're a beginner, by the end of second part of this tutorial you'll be able to create any isometric house with small details and rich realistic shadows. You're watching TNT tutorials, let's move on. Select Print, A4, Horizontal Orientation. In Advanced Options select RGB and click on Create. You can download this reference by the link in the video description. Just click on File, Place, and find path to download the reference. Then scale it, rename layer, and lock it. Let's create new layer, rename it to background. Let's bring this layer down. I for eyedropper tool, pick this color, M for rectangle tool, and draw a rectangle like this. Let's lock this layer also, create new layer, and rename it to house. Let's create base shape of this house. I for eyedropper tool. For now it really doesn't matter which color would you pick. Let's pick this one. M for rectangle tool, build rectangle, V for selection tool, effect, 3D, extrude and bevel, preview, select isometric left or isometric right. Let's change extrude depth, like so. If it's not handy for you to play with this slider, enter value here. I will enter 175. Your value can be different. You can click on More options, and for each object that you will create, you can apply different lightning source position, because later these lightning sources won't matter. We will expand all shapes and apply needed colors. So adjust lightning source just to have better view. Let's click OK. After you applied 3D effect, you can play with this shape and change proportions. Also, you can click here on Properties. Here you have Applied Effect, click on it, Preview, and you can choose any direction for created object. I will click here on Cancel. Let's try to scale this object. As you can see, when you're scaling object, extrude depth is changing. So after you will apply size or some basic proportions, Properties, click here on Applied Effects, Preview, and apply extrude depth. Let's click OK. Now let's create roof. Just hold your left mouse button here and pick Star tool. Simply click somewhere on the workspace and choose 3 points. OK. First of all, we need to get rid of these unnecessary points. P for pen tool, and just click on these points. V for selection tool. Rotate this object like so. I for eyedropper tool. Let's pick this color. Effect, 3D, extrude and bevel, preview, isometric left. Let's apply extrude depth. Click OK. And sometimes after you will apply 3D effect, you might want to change object somehow, and in the same time you want to leave this 3D effect applied because you don't want to pick it again. So in this case, you should have Appearance panel here. If you don't have it here, click on Window and pick Appearance. This window might appear somewhere here. Just drag it to this panel. So let's open Appearance panel, and here you can see all applied effects to selected shape. Let's just make 3D effect invisible. Now let's change size of this object. And as you can see, here we have rounded corner, and here we have some specific corners like this. Let's just apply it. First of all, A for direct selection tool, and drag this point down, like so, just a bit. Now we have rounded corner. Select object. Let's make 3D effect visible. You can also press A for direct selection tool and play with this point even more. But make sure that you have picked only this point, because right now we make rounded corners for all corners. We don't want this. Let's press Ctrl plus Z. To pick only this point, click on this point with Direct Selection tool. Then round corner. Make 3D effect visible. Also, we can apply any changes to this object. For example, let's add point here. For now, let's just place this object like so. You can even pick these two objects, Properties, and choose Align. Now let's move this object down and change Extrude Depth. Let's click here on Applied Effect, or select Appearance panel and click on Applied Effect here. Preview. I will enter 190 here. Click OK. Now I will pick A for Direct Selection tool, select this object, and I will pick only these 2 points, like so. Zoom out, A for Direct Selection tool again. These points are still active after you are using Hand tool to navigate or Zoom tool to zoom in and to zoom out. Let's just move these points and hold Shift to move them straight. Alright, let's click somewhere on the workspace to deselect this object. Now we need to cut these corners. Let's pick this object, and I will make this effect invisible, just to avoid any distraction and simply apply changes that I want. M for Rectangle tool. Let's draw a rectangle here. V for Selection tool. And let's move this rectangle to snap corner point of triangle, like this. Now hold Alt and do basically the same. As you can see, central point of this rectangle snaps to corner point of triangle. Now let's select all these objects, Shift plus M for Shape Builder tool, hold Alt, drag Shape Builder like so, and delete unnecessary parts. Let's select this object and make 3D effect visible again. If you don't like this result, A for Direct Selection tool, let's pick these 2 points and move them down. Now these 2 points and move them down also. Let's make roof wider, hold Alt and make it wider like so. To check how this object fits this object, I usually try to search for some parts that will help me to understand it. For example, these parts help me much better than this part. I think that I need to change Extrude Depth just a bit to make roof shorter, like this. And to understand what you're doing much better, let's press Ctrl plus R and drag guide from here. Let's place it like so. You can hold Alt and duplicate this guide. Now let's select this object, Applied Effect, Preview, and I will enter 185 here. This works for me very well. Now I can delete these guides, just select them both with holding Shift, just as usual objects, and delete them. Now let's change width just a bit, like so. These parts will help you very well to apply width. Now let's create another part of this roof. Let's select this object, Ctrl C, Ctrl F to make a copy. Click here on Applied Effect, Preview. Let's select Isometric Right. Let's change Extrude Depth. Play with Lightning Source. As you can see, you can apply all these methods very quick after you will learn them. Let's click OK for now. Change proportions. And that might happen that you don't want rounded corner anymore, but also you don't have dot here to change it. What you will need to do is to press P for Pen tool, add point right here in the center, then simply click on these 2 points to delete them, and with this point selected, Properties, and select Convert Selected Anchor Points to Corner. After this, you can apply roundness. P for Pen tool, I will delete these points. Let's move this object here. Also, as you can see, we don't see this object good enough here. So let's simply play with Lightning Source. I will leave this result. Basically what you want on this step is to quickly create needed objects, needed shapes, to make them look great later. I will change proportions here, change Extrude Depth, And what you don't want is these simple bold shapes. So always think about some interesting design and how you can improve overall look of isometric objects. So let's create this part for roof. It will make it look much more interesting. Select this object, Ctrl+C, Ctrl+F. Let's pick this color, for example, and click here to swap fill and stroke. Select Applied Effect, Preview, and change Extrude Depth. I will try 7 points. Sometimes you might also want to play with ambient light, if you want to make objects brighter. Let's click OK, and change stroke width. I see that I don't have enough contrast to view this object well, so I changed ambient light and direction of lightning source. You should do this to have better control on objects that you are creating. Now let's move this object here, place it like so, and you see that this object is obviously bigger than roof. So let's click here on Stroke and select Align Stroke to Inside. Then just move this object like so. Later I will show you how to be more precise using grids, how to rotate them, make sure that you're creating everything correctly, and quickly use them to fix some problems. As you can see, we didn't use guides here, but we placed these objects very well. What you should notice here is that if you will apply bold stroke width, you will lose this detail here. I mean this part. So if you want to make this part as bold as this, and you want to have such corner within it, then you need to pick this object first, select these 2 points, move them up like so, place this one here, then select this one again, Ctrl+C, Ctrl+F, bring this copy here, open Layers panel, find this object in Layers panel, it's over here. If you have too many objects, just pick needed object and click here on Locate Object. Illustrator will quickly find it for you. So what you want is to have this object selected, then hold Alt and drag this dot like this. If you see that you still don't have needed effect, you will understand that you need to move points of this object just a bit and everything will work for you. So let's delete this object. Hold Alt, drag appearance from this object to this, and you have needed result. Now you can delete this part and place this one just as we did. Such parts will help you to understand if you did everything correctly. But if you just can't move this object correctly, don't worry, because again, right now you want to quickly create all needed objects and then align and change them. So just place all objects as you can, don't waste your time, and don't try to fit everything ideally. You'll be able to do it later. Now let me show you one more tip. Let's press Ctrl+C, Ctrl+F, and now press I for eyedropper tool, and click on this object. As you can see, you can also get the same settings by picking needed object with eyedropper tool. First of all, let's click here on Applied Effect, Preview, and change direction of lightning source, like this. I will change Extrude Depth to 3 for now. Change lightning source again if you need to. Let's click OK. Let's change stroke width here. I will set 2 points. Let's move this object here. Take a look at this part. As you can see in reference, this part is hidden and it looks much more interesting than this one. Later we will hide this part according to reference. It will look like so. Also, I want to show you another way to change roundness of this part. You don't need to delete this object and apply anything again. First of all, pick this one, P for Pen tool, Add point right here in the middle. Delete these 2 points. V for selection tool, let's pick this object. P for pen tool, add point right in the middle. Delete these 2 points. With this point selected, convert selected anchor points to corner. The same here. Now A for direct selection tool, pick this point, hold shift, and pick this point also. And now round corners for them both. Like this. Let's create chimney. M for rectangle tool, click here to swap fill and stroke, draw rectangle, effect, 3D, extrude and bevel, preview, select isometric top, and play with the extrude depth. I will click OK for now, and change proportions just a bit. Change them proportionally. Let's change extrude depth again. I will enter 18 here. OK. Ctrl-C, Ctrl-F. Swap fill and stroke. Change stroke width. Apply the effect. Preview. I will enter 5 points here and click OK. I changed the extrude depth to 7 points. Now if you see that you're happy with object's design, but it's too small comparing to all other objects, and you know that when you will change proportions of this object, it will be changed, just don't touch it. Leave it as it is. Later, after we will expand all these objects, you'll be able to scale it and all proportions will be the same. So just create it and place it like so. Also, we have such angle here, which we will apply later, and shadow. As I look on this object, I think that I need to make this part wider, because if you will try to make wider this part, like this, you won't get good results. I mean, for this case, it's easier to pick this part and change proportions like so. Also, to view this object better, it's better to play with lightning source, to have better view on all geometry. Now let's create windows. Let's begin with this one. I for eyedropper tool. I will pick this color. M for rectangle tool. Let's draw a rectangle. Swap fill and stroke. Effect, 3D, extrude and bevel. Preview. Isometric right. I will enter 2 points for extrude depth. And click OK. Let's change proportions. And in such cases, to make sure that these objects are aligned, you can drag guide to this central point, then take a look at this side, and align it like so. Later it will be easier to use guides, because we will have point here, and guide will snap to this point, and it will be very handy to use it. So now, as I already told you, you don't need to be too precise. Just place it like so. Let's deselect this object. I for eyedropper tool, I will pick this color. P for pen tool. Simply create shape like this. Hold Ctrl, this button also, and bring this object down. Now you can even group them. To be able to move them like this, I will change proportions even more. Let's duplicate this window. Right-click, ungroup. Let's delete this part for now. With this object selected, Appearance panel, let's delete 3D effect from this object. Press this button on your keyboard. We just picked Line Segment tool, you can find it here. Let's deselect this object and draw a line like this. Select them both, Ctrl-G to group. Effect, 3D, Extrude and Bevel. Isometric left, 2 points for extrude depth, adjust lightning source, and click OK. Let's bring it here, change proportions, then pick this color, P for pen tool, and bring this object down. Select them both, Ctrl-G to group. I will try to quickly align these objects. Drag guide. and delete guide. There's only one window left to create, then we will simply duplicate this window. So again, we can simply duplicate this object, ungroup, delete this part, delete 3D effect, ungroup these objects, change proportions, hold Alt, duplicate this line, rotate it, make it smaller, Ctrl G to group, Effect, 3D, Extrude and Bevel, Preview, and now it really doesn't matter if you will pick isometric left or isometric right. After we will expand this object, we will simply flip it along horizontal axis and get needed results. So I will pick isometric right, for example, set 2 points, for extrude depth, adjust lightning source to see geometry better. Now let's pick this color again, P for pen tool, bring this object down, group these layers, Ctrl G to group, and now what you want in such cases is simply try how this window fits. Just duplicate it, see if you like overall look. I already see that I need to change proportions here, and I can make window bigger. Don't try to align anything. Just quickly check proportions and overall look. We will have door somewhere here, so windows should be placed like this. And now there's enough space to place door. And also we have enough space to place second roof. To quickly check how these windows will look on this side, you can duplicate this object. As you can see, when this object is grouped with filled layer, you can change 3D effect, and in this case you don't need to change it. Simply click on Object, Expand Appearance. Now this is not 3D object, that's what I already told you. You can simply click here to flip along horizontal axis and duplicate it here. If you're not happy with stroke width of this window, A for Direct Selection tool, pick this object, then these ones, and change stroke width. Also, you can click on Applied Effect and play with all other proportions. I think I will leave this result here. Let's delete these ones, duplicate these windows, Object, Expand Appearance, flip along horizontal axis. Place them like so, and take a look. I think this window will work for us very well. And why did I delete all copies? Because later we don't want to do the same thing over and over. We will pick this window, expand it, apply needed colors, then duplicate it with already applied colors. That means that we don't need to apply the same colors to the same objects again. Then we will duplicate this window again, apply other colors, and duplicate another copy. This will save a lot of time, and we won't do any silly work. After I explained it, I will duplicate these windows again. As you know that all these copies will be deleted, I will just leave them to have better view of this building. If you just can't see that these windows are not aligned, here's how you can quickly align them. Just pick these two, move to this line, like this, and then move them up. Then after you will move something, you'll be able to move it here again, check if everything aligned, and align these windows according to these ones. We just need some quick alignment here. I will align these ones also. To align these windows, just drag guide and use it like so. Let's delete guide. Alright, now let's create door. Duplicate this object, ungroup it. I think that you already noticed that you don't need to always create new objects. Sometimes you can simply pick previous objects and change them. This method will allow you to work even faster. Let's ungroup this object. Change proportions like so. Ctrl G to group. Effect, 3D, extrude and bevel. Preview, isometric right. Let's enter 2 points. Play with lightning source. Click OK. Let's bring this object here. And use guide just to have some better understanding on where we have center of this wall. You should also understand that there is some perspective. So, as we have perspective, this part will be a little bit bigger than this part. So that means that guide should be somewhere here. Also check distance from this window to door and from door to this window. Also don't forget to zoom out, sometimes it will help you. I will change proportions here. Now let's pick this color, P for pen tool, let's fill this part. Sometimes you need to press this combination a couple of times to bring layer down. Let's pick this color and fill this part. Now let's group these objects. After this, to make this isometric house look more interesting, you might want to experiment with some additional details, I mean these parts. First of all, let's pick this color. M for rectangle tool, let's draw a rectangle like this. Effect, 3D, extrude and bevel. Preview, let's pick isometric left. I will enter 2 points for now. Let's play with lightning source. Let's change proportions here. It might also seem complicated because you understand that you have to duplicate this part, then duplicate it here, and make it look seamless in this part, just as you can see in reference. But it only seems complicated because, again, right now we will simply create one part, just the same as we did with window. We will duplicate this part just to see if we like everything, experiment with extrude depth, proportions, and then simply delete all other copies, apply methods that I will show you, and create realistic details quick and easy. So now, let's try distance. Also let's select all windows. Let's select door, right click, arrange, bring to front. Let's see how it looks. I think I need more contrast. I will pick this object. Preview, and decrease ambient light. Now we see geometry much better. I will try another distance. Let's change extrude depth even more here. Preview. Let's enter 2 and 5 points. Click OK. You might also want to bring all these layers up. Hold Shift, deselect unneeded layer. Right click, arrange, bring to front. This will allow you to see applied changes even better. Let's try the distance. I will change proportions here. You can try distance like this, but to try it even better, you should make one copy, see if you like first distance. If you will play with distance like so, and you will press Ctrl+D to make copy, this won't work for you. So let's delete this object, hold Alt, duplicate object to needed distance, like this, and then press Ctrl+D. With this method, you can quickly play with design. I think I will start with this one. Now we need to move them up. I will simply create another copy, select them all, deselect this object, and move them up. I see that I will need to move these windows down a bit to match these parts. This is why you should leave these windows and delete them later. What you should also notice is this distance from bottom of this wall to bottom of this window. It should look realistic. Try to imagine some person here. I think I like distance between these objects, so I'll press Ctrl C, Ctrl F, Object, Expand Appearance, click here to flip along horizontal axis, move these ones here. If you picked some wrong object, simply delete it after that. Let's bring these layers down. Let's also press Ctrl G to group them, and move them like so, to have even better preview. Now we want to pick all these points and move them here, to see results better. But if you will pick A for Direct Selection tool and try to pick all these points, you will pick all other objects. You don't want this, so just double click on this group. Now this group is isolated, nothing will distract you. A for Direct Selection tool, pick needed points, and just move them like this. Double click somewhere on the workspace to exit isolation mode, and you have great preview. Let's leave it for now, later we will delete this part, and we will also delete all these parts, which you can also group if you think that you need to. I personally will group them. This will make workflow faster and easier. Let's create second roof. To make it correctly, first of all, drag guide here. To understand distance better, you want to make size of this roof realistic, and also this guide will help you to understand size of terrace. Let's try this measurement for now. M for rectangle tool, I for eyedropper tool, let's pick this color, effect, 3D, extrude and bevel, preview, isometric left. I will enter 3 and 5 points here. Now let's change this degree, like so. Just change it as you want to. To understand what result do you want better, watch at this side. This side will help you to make everything correct. I think I will leave this degree. Also, if you did something wrong here, like this for example, I don't recommend you to move 3D objects like this because you're losing control. If you did something wrong, simply select isometric left again and repeat this process. Play with lightning source if you need to, and click OK. Remember that you can always change degree, apply the effect, preview, and change it even more. Now let's play with proportions. After this you can change anything to fit all parts as you want. Don't be afraid to move everything, to change proportions, because with this method you can freely experiment and get needed results very fast and easy. So just don't worry about any alignment, move everything as you want to quickly create good overall look. Now let's press Ctrl C, Ctrl F, Object, Expand Appearance, flip along horizontal axis, move this one here, double click on it to isolate it, A for Direct Selection tool, select these points, and move them like so, to get quick preview of what you will have. Don't worry about this part also, we will quickly create it. After we will expand these objects. If you decided to change this distance, you can play with proportions like so, but I think I will leave this result. Let's drag another guide, press R for Rotate tool, then press Enter, Preview, enter 60 degrees here, Preview again, let's click OK, and move this guide like so. Why did I do this? Because now we see that I obviously need to change proportions of this roof. As you can see, terrace will start from this point and will end somewhere here. I think this size is too small, so I will change proportions of this roof, like so. I will create another guide, R for Rotate tool, enter, minus 60 degrees, preview, click OK, and move this guide like so. This is how you can quickly check if you're creating everything correctly. Also, this will help you to understand what proportions do you need to apply to 3D objects. You can select all these guides like so. Let's deselect these objects. And you can move these guides to change distance even more. I will place them like so. That means that I need to change proportions here also. Let's delete this part. Ctrl-C, Ctrl-F, Object, Expand Appearance, flip along horizontal axis, place this one here, double-click on it, A for Direct Selection tool, pick these points, and move them like so. I think these proportions are great. Let's continue. M for Rectangle tool, let's draw a rectangle, pick this color, Effect, 3D, Extrude and Bevel, Preview, select Isometric Top, change Extrude Depth, play with Lightning Source, let's hold Alt, and duplicate this guide here. You don't need to blindly follow guides, we are creating them just to have better understanding. That doesn't mean that we can't change anything after that. I will move this one down, like so, because we should remember about distance from floor to this window. Let's press Ctrl-C, Ctrl-F, Object, Expand Appearance, flip along horizontal axis, double-click on it, A for Direct Selection tool, pick these points, and move them like this. Exit isolation mode, let's bring this object down, and we can move door a bit. Also, here is a great tip for you. Open Layers panel, create new layer, and rename it to Guides. Select all these guides. With these guides selected, highlight this layer, right-click on Guides, Arrange, Send to Current Layer. And now they all in this layer, so you can turn them off and turn them on when you will need to. You don't need to delete them each time you don't need them. This tip will make your workflow even faster and easier, especially in the second part of this tutorial, when we will use them to quickly finish this isometric house. We will also create this part in the second part of this tutorial, just the same as this part. Now let's create handrails. Let's pick Line Segment tool, press this button, or pick it here, with white color, click here to swap fill and stroke. Let's draw first line, change stroke width, then let's choose distance, Ctrl-D, let's press it a couple of times, hold Alt, duplicate this line, rotate it, change proportions, duplicate it here also. Now group them all, press Ctrl+G, Effect, 3D, Extrude and Bevel, Preview, Isometric Left. I entered 2 points here, change Lightning Source, click OK. And now you can quickly adjust it here, just the same as you did with previous objects. Change proportions like so. With such objects, it's better to be as precise as it possible. With this object selected, A for Direct Selection tool, pick these 2 points, and move them down, like this. The same with these points. Pick them, and move them up. Select Roof, right-click, Arrange, bring to front. Let's rotate this roof a bit. Let's rotate it like so. If you see that you need to change proportions here, don't worry, you will be able to apply it later. The most important is to match these parts as close as possible and these parts. Let's hold Alt, duplicate it here, click here on Applied Effect, Preview, select Isometric Right, click OK, Layers. Let's make guides visible. Let's move this guide here. These guides will help us to understand where we will place stairs. We will place stairs somewhere here, and that means that we can delete some lines from this object. And to do this, enter Appearance panel, make 3D effect invisible. Let's double-click on this group to isolate it. Delete this part. Make these 2 lines shorter. And delete this line. After this, let's make 3D effect visible again. Now let's duplicate this object here. and match this width. Select Guides layer and drag new guide here. Change proportions here a bit. Alright, now let's change these proportions. Like so. I will create another guide here. Also, you don't need to worry if you will create guides in House layer. Simply delete them from House layer, because you always have needed guides in Guides layer. So just feel free to use guides. You use Guides layer just to make your workflow faster. Sometimes you can forget about this layer and use straight guides by dragging them from the left, but if you see that you will need to rotate them, don't waste your time again, just make Guides layer visible, because you already have rotated guides in this layer. I'm happy with this result. Let's make Guides layer invisible. Let's create stairs. M for rectangle tool, draw rectangle, hold Alt, duplicate it like so. P for pen tool, draw lines like this. Select all these objects, Properties, Pathfinder, Unite. Then Effect, 3D, Extrude and Bevel, Preview, Isometric Left, play with lightning source, and change Extrude Depth. Let's click OK for now. Place it somewhere here. Let's just make stairs smaller. A for Direct Selection tool. Let's pick these points and change proportions here. This is how we will change proportions of this object also, after we will expand it. Now let's adjust Extrude Depth here. I think 27 points will work for us. Let's click OK. Make Guides layer visible again. And place this object like this. Now let's finish handrails. Ctrl-C, Ctrl-F. Appearance. Let's delete 3D effect. Ungroup. Delete these lines. Ctrl-G to group. Effect. 3D. Extrude and Bevel. Preview. Isometric left. 2 points. Let's click OK. And move this one here. Change proportions. If you will have some little gaps like this, don't worry, you will be able to change it after we will expand all these objects. Also, what we don't want is this connection. We want something like this, and we will need to adjust it. I will double click on this part, duplicate this object like this, just to have preview. Now let's duplicate this one here. If you can't pick needed layer, just press Ctrl-2 to lock some unneeded layer, and then you will be able to continue. Later, when we will need this layer, we will simply unlock it. Here it is. We will just simply click on this lock. Properties, click on Applied Effect, Preview, Isometric Right, click OK. Let's bring this layer down and place it like so. We need to move these layers up, just as we did. Let's do the same here. Everything looks nice, everything's connected properly. This is what you should pay attention to. Let's delete this part, unlock this layer, duplicate it here, Object, Expand Appearance, flip along horizontal axis, double click on it, pick these points, move them like so. Don't worry about this part. We can make this part shorter to make everything look correctly. As you can see, base of this isometric house is created. In the second part of this tutorial, I will show you how to finish this isometric house. You will learn how to add depth and volume to isometric illustration, how and when to use blending modes, gradients, blend tool, opacity mask, and clipping mask. I will also show you what problems can you have, how to professionally solve them, and will give you recommendations on how to avoid different mistakes. All tips from second part will allow you to create professional isometric design that will look clean and eye-catching. If you learned something new from this tutorial, drop a comment below, let me know if everything was clear enough for you and what you liked about this video. If you enjoyed this tutorial, support this channel by clicking on subscribe, and what's most important, by clicking on the bell icon to get notifications about newest tutorials from TNT. I would also appreciate if you will click thumbs up and will share this video. This was TNT Tutorials, see you in next videos!